Well, shalom, shalom. Welcome, welcome, world changers. And thank you, Hannah, for the beautiful music. As always, thank you for blessing us with your talent. All right, well, tonight we are going to get into Judges chapter 12 and chapter 13. Some very interesting and very informative, if you will, educational things that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Samson. We're going to talk about the pronunciation of Hebrew names. Did you know that even amongst the tribes of Israel that they pronounce names differently? Okay, so I know there are some people that believe that you must pronounce certain names certain ways. Well, even way back in the day, they pronounced names differently, even amongst the children of Israel. We're going to talk about all that and more. We're going to read from Critical Thinking segment as well tonight. So I pray that everything that we share here today would be a great blessing to you, increase your knowledge of the scriptures, your knowledge of the things of heaven, your relationship with God, and your knowledge of the truth. Amen, amen, amen. All right, folks. Well, share the live stream, folks. Trish, thank you for the likes over there on TikTok. Blessings, blessings. All right, let's see what we have here in the live chat. By the way, we are live right now on TikTok, on YouTube, Kick, Facebook, Twitch, DLive, Rumble, Trovo, Instagram, BitChute, X, to name a few. We should be live on all these anyways. Thank you for sharing, Trish. I appreciate that. Okay, yeah. In the live chat on YouTube, we have Mr. All-Nighter says, today's my birthday. I'm 38. As I get older, I start to wonder where the heck did time go? Well, happy birthday, Mr. All-Nighter. Good to see you. Blessings, blessings multiplied to you and your family. Hope you had a happy birthday today. Chipmunk says, shalom, everyone. Calamento says, shalom to all. Chipmunk says, hello. Oh, hold on a second. For some reason I got double. Everything's doubled up again here. What is going on? What is going on? Okay. Hope I don't miss anybody. Hubert says, shalom. Seek the Lord says shalom. Al says shalom. Felix says, hi, everyone. Mr. Onator says, appreciate the birthday wishes, guys. And it's weird. My immediate family seems to have forgotten. They haven't called or texted, which is unusual. Oh, well, maybe they have other things on their mind. You know, Mr. Onator reminds me of my own testimony back in 1992. I think it was the only year, really, as far as I can remember, the only year my birthday came and went, and nobody wished me a happy birthday. Nobody even wished me a happy birthday. Nobody gave me any cards, no presents, nothing like that. But you know, God used it mightily. Actually, that is one of the factors that worked into my life back in those days, and how God changed my life. Brought me out of the kingdom of darkness. That was one of the things that happened. That God can even use things like that. Well, in spite of your family not contacting you, Mr. Onator, and sorry to hear that. Hope you still had a good birthday, a happy birthday. Matthew says, Lila Tov, everyone. Lila Tov, Matthew. Trish on YouTube says, good morning, all, and happy birthday to Mr. All-Nighter. Trish says, I just wanted to thank you for all the prayers yesterday, and I'm continuing to pray for you all today too. Thank you, Trish, and I'm glad that you were blessed by that, and thank you for your prayers as well. Well, shalom, shalom. Welcome to y'all. Blessings multiplied to you and your families. All right. Okay. Yeah, if anybody has any prayer requests, feel free to drop those in the live chat. We will get to those ASAP. We had a wonderful time of prayer last night. That was amazing. And I'm glad that Trish was Blessed by that. Trish says, shalom, shalom, Trish. Welcome and blessings, blessings multiplied to you. Okay, tonight, and I don't know if we're going to do any more quote unquote testing in this new feature that we are testing right now in this new feature of on YouTube. Tonight might be the last night we're testing it. So if you are a member on the YouTube channel, if you didn't already, there's two things you could do. You can go over to the posts section on my YouTube channel and vote, because I posted a poll there earlier today in regards to the whole testing thing that we've been doing, to get your feedback on that. If you haven't voted on that, you could do that later, or you could just stick around, and when we do transition into the members only part, I will post another poll here on the live stream for you to vote on, so you don't have to really go anywhere. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, this past, I think it's been what, how many days now? It's been 3 or 4 days anyways, that we've been doing this. We have been testing a new feature that YouTube has been rolling out, and this is the feature is, you start out with a publicly viewable live stream on YouTube, and you set a timer when the public video live stream transitions into a members only live stream. And so when that happens, if you're a member, it's supposed to be a seamless transition where it's like you just go from one live stream to the next live stream, and everything's all fine and dandy, and everything goes smooth. If you're not a member, YouTube will prompt you to become a member, or to consider becoming a member, either way. What we have been doing up until this point, we have been opening up the Saturdays and Sundays for public. That would be the live chats and the live streams. And then during the week, we have been broadcasting the live streams publicly, the whole entire live stream for anyone to watch. However, the live chat was limited to members. Okay, so we can go back to doing that way, or we can do it this new way. So if you're a member, please let me know, either a little bit later on when we go into it, or you can just go over to the poll on the YouTube channel and vote on that poll if you haven't already. Either way, if you're going to stick around for the rest of the live stream, you can just wait until I post that poll once we go into the members only segment of it. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you receive any kind of value at all from what we do, please do understand it is because of the members that the members and the supporters that we're doing what we're doing. And if you find any value here, please consider pitching back in, if you will. It's a matter of just clicking the join button underneath on YouTube and choosing the tier of membership that you want. It starts very, very low, very affordable. It starts at like $3 and something a month US. And it goes up from there, depending on how much you would like to help out. Anyways, if you haven't already, please consider doing that. And every little bit of support that we get really makes a big difference. So thank you for those of you who are supporting, and thank you for those of you who are considering to become a member. It is certainly much needed and much appreciated. Blessings to you guys. Trish says, I think it's been such a blessing to see the extra comments. They have been lovely, although I don't always get to watch lives until later, and it's 10 a.m. Wednesday here. Well, thank you, Trish, for letting me know what you giving me some feedback there. Yeah, we usually have the comment section open no matter what on the weekends anyway. This will be Saturday and Sunday. The thing is there's a lot of over the past four plus years, going on 5 years now. There's been so much distraction and so much trolling and so much going on in the live chat, and so a lot of people they're they'll dedicate time to cause a disturbance or to make things a little bit more less enjoyable. But when it comes to pitching in a few pennies, they won't do that. And so this is, we can vet the trolls, weed them out, and also ensure that those who are taking part in the live chat are serious enough to pitch in a few coins anyways, and that really helps out in many ways. It helps clean the chat up, helps improve the quality of the live chat and the experience for everybody that's in there, as well as helping out with what we do here. Thank you, Trish. Trish says, yes, I can imagine there would be, even from people who believe they are from the faith. Trish, that's what we get the most hate is from the people that are from the faith, what you would call people that are they consider themselves Christians or Christian influencers or Christian leaders. This is where we get the most of our problems from, unfortunately. It should be the other way around, right? The Gospel of John, chapter 17, the real Lord's Prayer, the prayer that the Lord himself prayed, if you take it, historically and literally, it's basically all about unity and love, unity and loving each other. But unfortunately, we have so many people within the church and within believing circles, if you will, that are so vitriolic, unfortunately. Yeah, so anyways, guys, we're going to get into critical thinking, and then we're going to get into the Judges chapter 12 and chapter 13. All right, so share the live streams. Share the live stream with your family, your friends, your coworkers, your neighbor. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Trish. Matthew says, my sister says some of the most unpleasant things because I don't agree with her. Yeah, we get that a lot. I see that so much, even in the comment section. Not so much in the live streams anymore because of how we've been weeding the garden in the live chat, in the live streams. But in the comment section, it can get pretty bad. And by the way, if there are people that are listening to this, if you are listening to this and you are somebody that doesn't necessarily love your neighbor as you should, or love your fellow believers as you should, I think that it's important to reassess and to put humility, to walk with God in humility as much as possible. Meaning that you're not, there's a lot of people that, this is one of the reasons why we do the critical thinking as well. A lot of people, there's so much like, well, this is the truth and you don't agree with this, then you're wrong. Okay, well, where's your evidence to support what you're saying? All right. I mean, God is a God of evidence. He always showed evidence to everybody who honestly asked them for evidence. All the way through the scriptures, we see God showing evidence at every turn. When somebody asked for evidence, he gave evidence. Give no problem about that at all. So a lot of people, what they do is, they idolize their own belief system over really the God of the Bible, if you will. They make their statement of faith, they make their dogma their God. They don't think they do, but they do. All right. Well, guys, let's see what we got here. The critical thinking segment for tonight. We have one of the most profound limitations to our thinking isn't a lack of intelligence, but a fundamental misunderstanding of what our brains are actually for. We treat our minds like a storage unit when they are designed to be a workshop. Your brain is a bad office. Imagine your mind is an office. For most of us, this office is a chaotic mess. Ideas are scribbled on sticky notes that fall off the wall. Important insights are buried under piles of mental junk mail, and brilliant connections are lost because the two key files are in different, forgotten stacks. We spend most of our mental energy just trying to remember things and keep track of it all. This is because we are using our brains for a job they were never designed to do. Your brain is a magnificent idea generation factory, but it is, your brain is a magnificent idea generation factory, but it is a terrible filing cabinet. It is brilliant at making connections and solving problems, but it is notoriously unreliable for storing information accurately over the long term. A true critical thinker understands this limitation and does something radical about it. They stop using their primary brain for storage. They build a second brain. A second brain isn't a science fiction concept. It is a trusted external system you can create to capture, organize, and connect your thoughts, insights, and learning. It can be as simple as a structured notebook or as complex as a digital app, but the principle is the same. You intentionally offload the job of remembering so that your mind is free to do the job of thinking. By building this external system, you are not just becoming more organized, you are fundamentally upgrading your ability to think critically. How a second brain supercharges your thinking. Building this external system gives you 3 superpowers that are impossible to achieve when you're relying on your biological brain alone. Number 1, it frees your mind for deep work. Your brain has a very limited amount of working memory, or what scientists call cognitive load. When that working memory is clogged with trying to remember a quote you liked, a question you had last week, or the 3 points of an argument, you have no mental bandwidth left for deep thinking. By capturing every potential valuable thought in your second brain, you give your biological brain permission to let it go. This clears the clutter from your mental office. It frees up your precious cognitive resources to focus on what your brain does best, analyzing, creating, and connecting ideas at a much deeper level. Number 2, it turns fleeting thoughts into permanent assets. An idea that stays in your head is a fleeting, unreliable vapor. An idea that is captured in your second brain becomes a permanent, tangible intellectual asset. It becomes a solid building block. The practice. You can now take this idea block and place it next to another one you captured 6 months ago. Suddenly you see a connection you never would have noticed before. Your second brain allows you to have a slow motion conversation with yourself over weeks, months, or even years. It turns your learning from a series of isolated, forgotten events into a cumulative, interconnected body of personal knowledge. Number 3, it creates an honest mirror of your mind. As we've discussed before, our memory is a treacherous, reconstructive storyteller. It remembers what it wants to remember and conveniently forgets the times we were wrong or inconsistent. The practice. Your second brain is an honest mirror. It has no ego. It will show you with perfect clarity what you actually thought about a topic a year ago. The payoff. This allows you to track the evolution of your own thinking with brutal honesty. You can see how your views have changed, identify your own blind spots, and learn from your past intellectual journey. This honest feedback loop is one of the most powerful catalysts for genuine growth and humility. Today's challenge. Your brain is a brilliant but forgetful genius. A second brain is a patient and reliable assistant. The partnership between them is where true intellectual breakthroughs happen. Your challenge for today is to take the first, most fundamental step in building your second brain. Capture one thought. At some point today, you will have an interesting idea, a question, or an insight from your reading that you would normally just let drift away. Don't. Grab a notebook. Open a notes app on your phone and write it down. That's it. You have just taken a fleeting vapor and turned it into a permanent intellectual asset. You have taken the first step in moving from a cluttered mental office into a powerful workshop for ideas. Okay, well, tonight we are going to be reading from Judges chapter 12 and chapter 13. We're going to finish up with Jephthah in Judges chapter 12, and then in Judges chapter 13 we got a very interesting story. So we got the story. We begin with Samson, and we also have hold on a second. Judges chapter 13 is Samson, and Judges chapter 12 is the story of the different pronunciations of names, especially Shibboleth or Shibboleth. Okay. So you have any questions, folks, just feel free to drop those in the live chat. Once we get into Judges chapter 12, I will be putting the timer on for the last time of our testing of this feature of transitioning from the public live stream into a members-only live stream on YouTube. So when we do transition, I'm going to post a poll for those of you who are members to vote on. If for some reason you can't stick around until we get to Judges chapter 13, please just go over to the post section on YouTube, and you'll see there's a poll for the members, and so please vote on that if you haven't already. Okay, well, lots to talk about here, lots to learn from. So Judges chapter 12, let's begin with verse 1. The men of Ephraim were gathered together and passed northward, and they said to Jephthah, "Why did you pass over to fight against the children of Ammon, and didn't call us to go with you? We will burn your house around you with fire." Well, right here is quite the way to start out, and as we've seen so far, Judges is quite the book in regards to these kind of scenes where we got violence and all kinds of stuff going on like this in the book of Judges. So Judges chapter 12 verse 1, this here, you see now, so the men of Ephraim were gathered together, passed northward to confront Jephthah. So the question they asked was, why did you pass over to fight against the children of Ammon, and didn't call us to go with you. So this is, as we've seen so far up until this point, this is a recurring issue. The tribe of Ephraim was a large and very powerful tribe, centrally located, and a direct descendant of Joseph. Descendants from Joseph. So they saw themselves as natural leaders, and they had quite a bit of an ego, apparently, as we see in the text here. They lodged the exact same complaint with Gideon in Judges chapter 8, if you can remember. The same kind of complaint. So there's a pattern here of feeling slighted and wanting to share the glory. Verse 2, Jephthah said to them, I and my people were at great strife with the children of Ammon, and when I called you, you didn't save me out of their hand. When I saw that you didn't save me, I put my life in my hand, and I passed over against the children of Ammon, and Yahweh delivered them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me today to fight against me? Then Jephthah gathered together all the men of Gilead and fought with Ephraim. The men of Gilead struck Ephraim because they said, you are fugitives of Ephraim, you Gileadites, in the middle of Ephraim and in the middle of Manasseh. Okay, so let's talk about these few verses here before we go too far. So Jephthah's defense. Basically, I called you, but you didn't save me, is what he says here. He turns their accusation back on them. He turns the tables on them. And then he adds an insult. So when he goes down to, in verse 4, you fugitives of Ephraim, you Gileadites, this is an insult. So the insult, this particular insult, is very complex if you want to look at it from a very scholarly point of view. So it suggests that the Gileadites, which was really Jephthah's people, were seen as a mixed and frontier population. And Jephthah throws this back, implying that the Ephraimites who crossed the Jordan are now the real runaways. So this is a provocation from Jephthah that really spurs on this civil war. Verse 5, the Gileadites took the fords of the Jordan against the Ephraimites. Whenever a fugitive of Ephraim said, let me go over, the men of Gilead said to him, are you an Ephraimite? And he said no. If he said no, then they said to him, now say Shibboleth. And he said Sibboleth, for he couldn't manage to pronounce it correctly. Then they seized him and killed him at the fords of the Jordan. At that time, 42,000 of Ephraim fell. So apparently this particular name, and this is the point that I was making earlier, Shibboleth was pronounced differently. And even to this day, in the Hebrew, we have the letter for S, which would be a shin. It's also called sin, shin, because that Hebrew letter can be pronounced as an S or as an SH. So even today, it's kind of like like juggling. Is this word to be pronounced with a sh or a s? So these people, even though they were direct descendants of Joseph, okay, they're right in the heart of the scriptures. This shows us that these tribes had different accents, if you will, different ways of pronouncing names. They didn't all pronounce names the same way. They had different ways of pronouncing names. So this is how they found out whether a person was an Ephraimite or not. So apparently Ephraimites could not say Shibboleth. For some reason, maybe they had a maybe it was a cultural thing. Maybe that's the way they grew up. They had a hard time making that sound, sh sound, the sh sound. So they would say Shibboleth instead of Shibboleth. And that's how they were that's how their identity was given away. "42,000 Ephraimites fell then. Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in the cities of Gilead." Okay, so just these few verses we have Chipmunk says they would have a field day over tomato versus tomato, potato. Yeah, I guess they would, that's for sure. Very much so. Thank you, Chipmunk. Yeah, all right. So we got verses 5, 6, and 7. So the Gileadites in verse 5 seized the fords of the Jordan against the Ephraimites. They made them say, or they asked them to say Shibboleth, and if they couldn't say it properly, or if they said it a different way, instead of say Sibboleth instead of Shibboleth, then that's how they would be able to identify the Ephraimites or not. So this is one of the most famous examples of a dialectal difference in the scriptures. The Ephraimite could not pronounce the SH. Okay, so here's the thing. Shibboleth can mean ear of grain or a flowing stream. Both in this context could be relevant. So this reveals that even within Israel, there were distinct accents strong enough to identify a person's origin. Powerful and brutal use of linguistics as a weapon. And then we have the 42,000 of Ephraim that were killed. So here's the thing. Like many large numbers in the ancient battle accounts, this is likely a form of a hyperbole, because using the word, the Hebrew word for thousand, Aleph, which can also mean a clan or a military unit as well. So we need to keep this in mind. And whenever you come up with, whenever you see stuff like this, and you compare different manuscripts. Now, in this case, all the manuscripts say the same say the same thing. 42,000. All the major ones anyway. So we got the Peshitta, 42,000. We got the Septuagint, 42,000, and the Masoretic, also 42,000. However, You don't always see this kind of consistency. In fact, it's quite common to see inconsistencies amongst the ancient manuscripts, and very much so. Once we get into 1st and 2nd Chronicles, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, you'll see what I'm talking about. There are a lot of inconsistencies, discrepancies, contradictions between the numbers. See, in our minds, in our 21st century minds, we read the text like lawyers. I don't think they did back in the day. I think that they didn't put so much emphasis on the actual numbers or the actual the strict literary conveyance of the words in the numbers, but rather they put more emphasis on the meaning, or the like a symbolic meaning, hyperbole, lots of figures of speech within the text. I have found that one of the greatest ways to identify a mature mind in the scriptures is to a mind that takes things less literally is a good sign of more of a mature mind in interpreting the scriptures. So here's a good example, right? The 42,000. Even though the scriptures all agreed, the main manuscripts anyways, this word for 1,000 can mean a clan, 42 clans. May not be like a precise mathematical number, but rather an overall estimate. A good example of this, and I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't get too far off the beaten track here, but a good example of this is First Kings chapter 7. This is a good example of what I mean here. The basin, the sea, if you will, it's called here, the sea of cast bronze, 10 cubits from one brim to the other, and it was completely round. Okay, so this is like a big bowl, if you will. 10 cubits would be approximately so 1 cubit's about 1.5 feet, so 10 cubits would be approximately 15 feet. So this would be like a huge bowl, 15 feet in diameter. And it says its height was 5 cubits, and it had a line of 30 cubits measured its circumference. So the circumference, it says here, is 30 cubits. This is not mathematically correct. Right? So the real calculation would be, well, like, okay, so it would be pi is, okay, say 3.14, right? Pi. So the real calculation mathematically would be 3.14 times 10 cubits, which would be 31, almost 31.5 cubits in circumference. 31.5 cubits, that's math, folks. That's truth. That's fact. However, this scripture here is not accurate to the math. This proves what I'm just, this is an example. This is a piece of evidence to support what I'm saying. We need to get out of our lawyers' minds many times when we're reading the scriptures as if it's perfectly, everything is just absolutely perfect in everything that it says. It's not, folks. A lot of it is very loose. There are a lot of discrepancies between the numbers many times. So if you wanted it to be accurate, it should say that its circumference was 31.5 cubits or 31.4 cubits, not 30 cubits. You see. So it's loose, right? I mean, it rounds it down to 30. You see what I'm saying? Chipmunk says, I'm guessing it was a large coffee mug, not a bowl. That is huge. Maybe for hot water baths. It is definitely huge. Thank you, Chipmunk. Yes, definitely huge. So when we see a number like this, 42,000, it may be, it's probably not, 100% accurate. It's probably it may be in the ballpark of that, or maybe this word thousand can mean something else that's not like a precise number. And then verse 7, Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in the cities of Gilead. So this is a very short reign, if you will, only 6 years. And even though it's only 6 years, it was quite the tragic and violent 6 years, I must say. All right, the last few verses. Well, let's do this paragraph, 8 to 10. After him, Ibzan of Bethlehem judged Israel. He had 30 sons. He sent his $30 outside his clan, and he brought in $30 from outside his clan for his sons. He judged Israel 7 years. Ibzan died and was buried at Jerusalem. 30 sons and $30, 30 daughters. 30 sons, $30, 30 sons, 30 daughters. So this isn't just about a large family. This is a clear strategy of diplomacy through marriage. Ibzan was forging alliances and building powerful political network, securing peace and influence not with the sword, but with family ties here. Verse 11. After him, Elon, the Zebulunite, judged Israel, and he judged Israel 10 years. Elon, the Zebulunite, died and was buried in Yailon in the land of Zebulun. So his inclusion, the inclusion of Elon here highlights that the leadership was not necessarily centralized. He was the Zebulunite. Verse 13 to 15. After him, Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Pirathonite, judged Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 sons who rode on 70 donkey colts. He judged Israel 8 years. Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Pirathonite, died and was buried in Pirathon in the land of Ephraim in the hill country of the Amalekites. Wow. 40 sons, 30 grandsons, rode on 70 donkeys. So back in Judges chapter 10, we have Yair. And so just like Yair or Jair, this is a signifier of immense wealth, status, and royal prestige. Donkeys were a symbol of royalty, whereas horses is for war. Donkeys were to transport the elite. So this paints a picture of a peaceful but yet prosperous period under his leadership. It's a stark contrast to the bloody civil war that preceded him. Okay, on over to Judges chapter 13. Judges chapter 13, the birth of Samson. Very, very interesting. Most people are very familiar with the story of Samson. Let me see what we have for our... I'm going to start... the timer. All right, so in 15 minutes, 15 minutes, it'll transition over into members only live stream. And also I want to see what's going on over there on YouTube. So in 15 minutes, we're going to transition over into a members only live stream as we go through Samson here. If you remember, if you haven't yet voted on the poll that's in the post section, let me know. Just vote on the poll on the post page on my YouTube channel, or you can just wait around, because I'm going to post a poll, a live poll too as well, because I want to. Let's make a decision tonight, folks, whether we should continue it this way or not. And by the way, folks, one more time, if you are not a member, and if you are a returning viewer here, you find, I assume if you're a returning viewer, if you've been viewing our live streams for a while, I assume that you find value here. If you do, please consider becoming a member. Help support what we're doing here. Pitch a little bit into the pot to help us. To help fund what we're doing here. You can do that by going to the to YouTube and clicking on the join button underneath, or the link in the description, and that way you can become a member on YouTube. Okay, yeah. So let's get into Judges chapter 13, the birth of Samson. Amazing. And by the way, folks, please do understand that the traditional story of Samson, that somehow he got strength from his hair, is not true. His strength didn't come from his hair. His strength came from God. And we'll get into this as we get into the story of Samson here. We'll get into how that works. Why did his strength leave him when his hair was cut? There is a very precise and clear answer to this. It's not just like his hair had some magical properties to it that gave him strength. That's not what it was. It's actually tied back into the Torah, but we'll get into that in just when we get to that, we'll get to that. Judges chapter 13, verse 1. The children of Israel did again that which was evil in Yahweh's sight. If we got it, how many times already? How many times in the book of Judges, in the first few chapters, do we get this over and over and over and over again? It's like we're on Judges chapter 13. Up until Judges chapter 13, how many times does it say the children of Israel did that which was evil in God's sight? You guys remember how many times it was? So far? Seems like it's almost every chapter, right? So far, we actually have 6 times. In Judges chapter 2, Judges chapter 3, twice in Judges chapter 3, Judges chapter 4, Judges chapter 6, Judges chapter 10, Judges chapter 13. Six times, and this would be like, and not including Judges chapter 13. That's a lot. Okay, verse 2. There was a certain man of Zorah of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and childless. Yahweh's angel appeared to the woman and said to her, See now, you are barren and childless, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now, therefore, please beware and drink no wine nor strong drink, and don't eat any unclean thing. For behold, you shall conceive and give birth to a son. No razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God. From the womb he shall begin to save Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Wow. Okay, so this gives us a very important clue here as to where Samson, how this whole thing works when it comes to his hair. Right in this very same sentence that talks about no razor shall come on his head, it tells you why. Because he is to be a Nazarite to God. So what's that mean? Well, if you go over to Numbers chapter 6, it tells us of this thing that we call the Nazarite vow. So Numbers chapter 6, the Nazarite vow, and it says, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, Whatsoever man or woman shall specially vow a vow to separate oneself with purity to the Lord, he shall purely abstain from wine and strong drink, and shall drink no vinegar of wine or vinegar of strong drink, and whatever is made of the grape he shall not drink. Neither shall he eat fresh grapes or raisins all the days of his vow. He shall eat no one of all the things that come from the wine from the grape stones to the husk. Grape stones would be the seeds to the husk, all the days of his separation. A razor shall not come upon his head until the days be fulfilled which he vowed to the Lord, and he shall be holy, cherishing the long hair of the head. All the days of his vow to the Lord he shall not come near to any dead body, to his father or his mother, or to his brother or to his sister. He shall not defile himself for them when they have died, because the vow of God is upon him on his head. All the days of his vow shall be holy to the Lord. And if one should die suddenly by him, immediately the head of his vow shall be defiled, and he shall shave his head in whatever day he shall be purified. On the 7th day he shall be shaved. On the 8th day he shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest, to the doors of the tabernacle of witness. And the priest shall offer one for a sin offering, and the other for a whole burnt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him in the things wherein he sinned respecting the dead body, and he shall sanctify his head in that day, in which he was consecrated to the Lord, all the days of his vow. And he shall bring a lamb of a year old for a trespass offering, and the former days shall not be reckoned, because the head of his vow was polluted. And this is the law of him that has vowed. In whatever day he shall have fulfilled the days of his vow, he shall himself bring his gift to the doors of the tabernacle of witness. So the gift would be the animal sacrifices and his other offerings, if you will. And he shall bring his gift to the Lord, 1 he-lamb of a year old without blemish for a whole burnt offering, and 1 ewe-lamb of a year old without blemish for a sin offering, and 1 ram without blemish for a peace offering, and a basket of unleavened bread of fine flour, even loaves kneaded with oil, and unleavened cakes anointed with oil, and their meat offering and their drink offering. And the priest shall bring them before the Lord, and shall offer his sin offering and his whole burnt offering. And he shall offer the ram as a sacrifice of peace offering to the Lord with the basket of unleavened bread. And the priest shall offer its meat offering and its drink offering. And he that is vowed shall shave the head of his consecration by the doors of the tabernacle of witness, and shall put the hairs on the fire which is under the sacrifice of peace offering. And the priest shall take the sodden shoulder of the ram, and 1 unleavened loaf of the basket, and 1 unleavened cake, and shall put them on the hands of the votary after he has shaved off his holy hair. And the priest shall present them as an offering before the Lord, and it shall be a holy portion for the priest beside the breast of the heave offering, and beside the shoulder of the heave offering. And afterward the votary shall drink wine. This is the law of the votary, who shall have vowed to the Lord his gift to the Lord concerning his vow, besides what he may be able to offer according to the value of his vow, which he has vowed according to the law of separation. Okay, so that is the Nazarite vow, and that's what it means when it says in Judges chapter 13 that Samson was to be under this vow from conception, from the womb. And this vow has many different stipulations, as we just read. So a few of them would be, again, not to drink any kind of wine, or anything from the grapevine, from the skins to the seeds of the grapes, not to come near any dead body, not to shave his head, not to cut his hair. This is part of the Nazarite vow. You might say, well, what's the Nazarite vow for anyway? What's it do? So there are 2 different categories of people that would take the Nazarite vow. Those like Samson, who are under the vow from conception. That would include Samson and some others, such as John the Baptizer, John the Baptist. Apparently he was under the vow as well, very much like Samson was, from the womb. I personally believe that Yeshua probably was too, because, hey, after all, why not? Because the Nazarite vow is like the highest form of Torah observance. Okay? When you observe the Torah, it's like you do everything you can do given the circumstances that you're in. And let's just say you've done everything, like how even Paul said in Philippians. According to the law, I'm blameless. I live righteously according to the law. Let's say you get to that point and you want to do more. this is what you do. You take the Nazarite vow. This is the more. This is the extra, going the extra mile for Torah, if you will. So why wouldn't Yeshua do this? And this is the reason why Samson was to keep himself pure in this way, which would include all those stipulations that we just read, and for no razor to come on his head. This portion that we just read here focuses on Manoah, the father, here in verse 2, of the tribe of Dan, and his barren wife. And keep in mind as well that this is not immediately